This week on Painting Lines.
Yes, he is
Mhm.
separated from most of the players, but that doesn't mean that another player can't have an opportunity to beat them.
It's kinda crazy that Djokovic was able to play through that meniscus injury because it happened during that match. Literally knocked Djokovic out of the tournament.
It's so crazy because
No,
he's just so shocked. He's just like, oh,
I'm going with a lock this week.
lock of the week.
Lock. Oh, this is a lock,
Ooh.
big time lock. I'll tell you why right here.
Welcome to the Painting Lines podcast, your one-stop shop for all things tennis. Join Erik and Aidan in their discussion for updates on news and pop culture, and from hot takes to betting, they've got you covered.
Ready?
Welcome back to Painting Lines. Last week we gave an update on the first 3 rounds of the French Open and what was going on at that point. And this week we're going to be recapping how the tournament ended up in those last few rounds. So, Erik, can you kind of kick us off with the most shocking thing you saw in these last few rounds?
Yeah, definitely, shocking. Well, I can definitely say I'm not shocked that a Spaniard won, Roland
Yeah,
Garros.
never seen
Pretty
that happen.
funny. Right, exactly, but the most shocking thing I saw this week actually came in the Zverev Deminar match right before it, where Zverev kind of cheated. People say he cheated with the coin flip. I guess he called heads, it landed tails, said he originally called tails, but like you can hear the audio on there. And I don't know if he was just kidding, kind of messing around, saying, like, all right, yeah, you got it. You serve first, like whatever you want. So I thought that was pretty funny, but people ripped on it on Twitter, like this is just blatant cheating. This guy's a disgrace to the sport, yada yada yada. And it just sucks because that piled on to like whatever he's dealing with off the court with the case. So I thought that was pretty
That's
shocking to just
crazy.
see that. I mean, the audacity, right? If he was actually cheating,
Yeah.
I think he was kidding though.
Yeah, I don't know. I did see another issue though, where like someone called one of the sides, and the ref had like not actually described what was on each side of the coin
Mhm.
correctly, and
Oh,
I think that was earlier on in the tournament. But it's like
yeah.
that's something where it's like the coin toss shouldn't be a big deal, and
Yeah.
if it's having any drama surrounding it, like something's gone massively wrong.
Yeah, I also did notice that when they were walking out for the big matches, they were doing, like, what the soccer players do and hold hands with the little kids. Is that normal?
I think
I
they
think
do
this is
that
the first time I
usually.
noticed
I
it.
think they do that usually, like, definitely seen it in some of the years past.
Yeah, it's so cool seeing the little kids' faces, like, how happy they are that they're holding Novak Djokovic's hand.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever seen that video of the the kid, in the Premier League noticing Wayne Rooney standing next to him? It's so crazy because
No,
he's just so shocked. He's just like, "Oh!" He's just jaw drops. It's a great reaction if
that's
you wanna
awesome.
look it
That's
up, but
awesome.
Uh, yeah, anyway, you wanna just hop right into this, round of 16?
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
So, just starting us off, I mean, obviously last week we made that Grand Slam pick'em, and we kinda just wanted to break that down first. So, I ended up getting 6 out of 8, and to be honest, I'm a little disappointed because I feel like I could have gotten 8 out of 8 if I hadn't gone for those massive swing picks with Arnaldi beating Tsitsipas and Cerundolo beating Djokovic. So, I'm okay with 6, but, like, it feel like it could have gone better.
I know, I know. I got 5. I was pretty upset about the Bruno one too. I
That
don't
was a
know,
close
man.
match.
I mean, I wasn't upset because I think I said in there I was pretty content with either one winning. Just upset with my pick. Like, why? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Arnaldi, that was kind of a reach. I'll give you that. And then Medvedev, I just picked because you were picking Deminar. But I
Yeah.
remember the hedge, the
Yeah,
ultra
you
hedge with
had
the
the
bet of the
hedge, you got
week.
the bet of the
So,
week win,
so I
so
did get that.
yeah, nailing the bet of the week, getting the money out of it,
I
really.
know, I know. So I guess
Yeah.
net even maybe.
Yeah, something like that, yeah, maybe like 5.5.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, in this round, really, like the whole tournament had gone really to this point, there were no crazy shocks. Like there were some really good matches. Djokovic and Cerundolo battled the 5 sets. Rune and Zverev, like I said, also 5 sets. And obviously there was the Deminar upset of Medvedev, but really when you talk about that match, it doesn't feel like that big of an upset. Firstly, because obviously Deminar is a top level player, but
Hmm.
secondly, because we know how Medvedev feels about clay. He doesn't like it as a surface. He doesn't feel comfortable on it. So it doesn't feel as much of an upset as if, for example, Deminar had beaten Medvedev at like the US Open.
Right. So do you think this is a product of the top four players just significantly being better than the rest here, or like a clear separation, or it's like surface dependent?
I think that it is the top 4 being kind of separated. I mean, obviously, they were the ones making these deep runs, and while they did have some really close moments, like, think of Zverev versus, Griekspoor, like, that was a
Mm,
really close match, and Zverev could have easily lost that, but then he ends up going on to make the final, as we know, so, that is a situation where yes, he's better than everybody, or not yet better than everybody, but yes, he is
mhm.
separated from most of the players, but that doesn't mean that another player can't have an opportunity to beat them.
Yeah, I think it's also the 5-set format, right? Best out of 5. You're gonna see over the long run, the better players win in 5 sets. Like, it actually benefits them.
Exactly, exactly. It kind of like evens out their
Mhm.
odds in a way.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I mean, you know how I feel about this, so
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we know exactly how you feel about this, the higher seeds winning. But yeah, so moving on to the quarterfinals, Djokovic obviously pulled out after that Cerundolo match. And to be honest, it kind of reminded me of Nadal in Wimbledon 2022. It's a little bit less extreme because obviously in that situation, Nadal pulled out and gave a bid straight to a final for Kyrgios rather than Ruud getting a bid here straight from the round of 16 to the semis. So a little bit less extreme, but I do think that there's a similar thing there with like if you lose that match, you really have to feel bad for someone like Sarandolo, who is like, damn, man, you couldn't have just like retired in the fifth set and given me that chance. But it's how it goes. And in a way, I mean, obviously my pick'em wasn't right, but Sarandolo did kind of knock out Djokovic. He didn't beat him, but he did kind of knock him out by just dragging it out in that match.
yeah, I think the clay kinda helped out Cerundolo, knock him out there too. You know, it's kinda crazy that Djokovic was able to play through that meniscus injury because it happened during that match,
Mm,
correct? And he was just complaining, he was sliding all over the place. You know, the first few days of the tournament, it rained every single day, and then on the back end, it was super dry. The conditions of the court were very slippery. A lot of the players were complaining. You have players like even Rude complaining. You have
yeah.
Alcaraz saying that this is a hard court.
Yeah, I
Remember
was
in the
about to bring that
final?
up. That was
Yeah.
that was such a funny. He's like, "What are you talking about? This is a clay court. This is a hard court. Look how it's playing."
Yeah, I know. I mean, it kind of crazy that it literally knocked Djokovic out of the tournament.
Exactly,
But
just brutal conditions that he
mhm.
probably wasn't expecting in this tournament.
I wonder if a younger Djokovic would have fought through it, still played on through the torn meniscus.
I feel like a torn meniscus is one of those things you can't really. I mean, I guess he did play
I
through it
think you can.
in
I
this
think you
match,
can. Yeah.
but I it's he may have tried to, but that may have been a bad decision. I feel like that's one of the things
Yeah.
where it's like it's a bad decision you make when you're a younger player.
Hmm. Yeah.
And when you're an older player, you realize how bad of a decision that actually is
Oh, yeah.
because you want to be back on the court at like the highest level as soon as possible.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, there's no point in risking this when you still have the rest of slam season, Wimbledon or Olympics. The
Yeah.
only achievement he doesn't have, Wimbledon
That's
and US
yeah.
Open.
The only thing he's worried about is that Olympics. And it's
Literally.
back here at Roland Garros
Yeah.
too.
Do we know if he's going to be good by then? He's got to, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Because
I
I think
wouldn't be
it's a
surprised if like
3
the
to 4
crazy
week.
thing is to think about is like for someone at Djokovic's level, could there be a situation where he literally skips Wimbledon to play in the Olympics?
Oh.
Which is a
Oh.
crazy thing to think about. Like, does he value the Olympics more than Wimbledon at this point in his career?
Oh, I don't know.
But
That's
yeah,
he's
but
already solidified himself, right?
yeah,
I
well, yeah,
mean,
he is the most accomplished of all time. Most people say the GOAT, and he has all these Wimbledons already. Is like almost has the most of all time, and obviously right behind Federer, but he doesn't have that Olympic gold. And
Yeah.
you got to say, hey, if that's what you really value, do you
Yeah.
make a change in your schedule here about Wimbledon? Obviously, he's hoping that he's healthy for both tournaments, but at what point do you value the Olympics over Wimbledon? It's a tough thing to say,
Yeah, it is. It is.
but
I think Zverev would be willing to trade in his Olympic gold for a couple Grand Slams,
oh, for sure,
or at
for
least
sure.
one Grand Slam.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I mean, the question there is like
yeah.
you think of someone like Murray. Would Murray be willing to trade in one of his Olympic golds for like having won one of those Australian Opens that he did? Because obviously
Ooh.
he
Yeah.
lost so many Australian Open
Yeah, I
finals
know. I
and
know.
never got one, but he got two Olympic golds. So it's a weird balance. The Olympics is such a unique thing because it only comes around once every
Hmm.
4 years, as we know. But it isn't really valued as highly as a Grand Slam.
Oh, no way. I think it's pretty funny. Zverev played what? Who was it? Was it Kachanov? No, for the
Uh,
gold, it
I
was
think it was Kachanov.
was it
Yeah,
Kachanov? Yeah, and it just goes to show, like, I mean, Kachanov's a good player, but he's not making it to a Grand Slam final.
yeah. I mean, and Djokovic, I think, lost in the bronze medal match too. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
it's a weird tournament. But anyway,
Uh,
just wrapping up the quarterfinals here. The rest of the matches pretty much were domination, just straight set victories for all of the top guys, and everyone moved on. And what it really set up was interesting was obviously if Djokovic had been there, he would have been the number one seed. But outside of him, you had the top four players in the semis. And I know we already brought this up a little bit, but do you think this is a good or bad thing, Eric? Because I know you like to see the highest like seeds win, but still top four, is that a positive?
yeah, I like the domination because it might be a personal thing that I kind of missed the big three era when I was watching tennis, like coming on to the scene. And I feel like I'm just really craving like a Sinner, Alcaraz, Zverev, pure domination. I think Sinner and Alcaraz have even more potential to go to keep growing. And Zverev, you can't really count him out either. He's 27. The other two are 21, 22. But I can see a scenario where, he kind of has a late bloom, a late peak, kind of like Stan Wawrinka, who won his first slam at age 28. So I wouldn't really completely rule out Zverev. I think he's just getting started right after that injury. So and then obviously Djokovic, I don't really know how much longer he'll be able to hold on, but I like the clear, like, okay, top four seeds
Yeah, and
to the
and
final. I think it's better tennis.
you can also throw Medvedev in there on hard courts
Hmm.
and probably on grass too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you just get better matches in the end because it's not like you're getting a fluke. Someone kind of cruises in and then gets blown out in a semifinal.
You know,
Like
and
I like having an Alcaraz Sinner semifinal.
I mean, I feel like your point was kind of proven here in this tournament where
Hmm.
like we had the top four seeds in or not the top four seeds because rude, but we had some of the highest seeds in these last rounds and those matches really delivered. Like the
Mm.
semifinal and final between Sinner Alcaraz and Alcaraz Zverev were some spectacular matches, just incredible to watch. And this really proves that sort of point these were the matches you were hoping for and they were delivered in this tournament. But I think sometimes it's nice to see, like we talk about maybe the Italian Open, for example. We saw the Chileans make those runs. They were obviously massive underdogs,
Hmm.
but I think the reason the Italian Open was special was because they didn't just make it to a certain point and then get blown out. Like, think of how Tabilo did in those last few rounds, and you look at his matchup, and he delivered in those matches. Still, it wasn't like he got just blown out by the top players.
Yeah, I see that. I'll reason with you. I like it in Grand Slams, but in the Master Series, I could see, players going far and I can go for it because, you can't win everything. And I do think Jerry kind of got blown out in the final though.
Yeah, he did, but I feel like Tabilo's match in the semifinal
Hmm.
was pretty
Right. It was
exciting.
good. It was good.
Yeah, but anyway, I think yeah, it sounds like you're kind of hoping for a little bit of a return to like the big four type of era, just with new
Hmm.
players.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm looking forward to. I'd love to see, because I think when that happens, I think it makes them better. So you get a better quality of tennis because they're pushing each other. Like this new Sinner Alcaraz rivalry is going to like that. This is what gives me hope for the rest of tennis.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it gives them hope, hopefully, that they get better and better against each other. But maybe it's just a scary thing for the rest of tennis where everybody else is like,
I was
dude,
gonna
these two
say,
guys are just pulling away from us.
yeah. Well, remember the stat you brought up the other week about what was it? A player, no one born in the '90s won a Grand Slam,
Yeah. Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
think only
Well, Medvedev.
one was it team. Oh,
Medvedev.
Medvedev, right,
Team
right.
was the first
So
one to do it, and it wasn't until 2020 that he did it. And then Medvedev, I think, did it after him.
jeez, yeah, and that's kind of another reason why I wanted Zverev in the final
Yeah. Get those
because he's
90s
never won.
kids.
Yeah, the '90s. I'm rooting for the '90s babies.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, the 2000s guys already got a couple, so
Yeah, yeah. Jeez,
but,
I think Roddick said it on his podcast, but the lost generation, the
yeah,
guys born in the '90s.
all of the 90s. It's such a just massive age gap that just got completely owned by the Big 4.
I know, I know.
But anyway, let's jump into the semifinals here. So,
Mhm.
obviously, Rude gets a straight jump here because he didn't have to play, Djokovic, but
Hot take. I think Djokovic was scared to play Rude from last time.
he was like, "It's a PR move."
Yeah.
But,
It's like, I can't lose to this guy again.
yeah, exactly, exactly. We talked about that, I think, like, a couple weeks ago, making the PR decision to not play
Mhm.
in a match because you don't want people to think you're worse than you are. But, anyway, so Ruud jumped out to that early lead on Zverev, won the first set, but then he kinda just faded as the match went on, and I'm pretty sure he had, like, a sickness or something that was kinda bogging him down a little bit.
Yeah, I think he had a stomachache because I
Mm.
was listening to the press conference and he was saying that he was fighting off the stomach ache. He said it was maybe something he ate that morning or the night before. And Rude's not really one to complain, and he was complaining a lot in that press conference. And he was saying stuff like, "Yeah, I wish it could have came yesterday or the day before, or one of the 3 days I had in between from my
Yeah,
last match to this match. But no, I mean it happened, so I can't do anything." Like, all right, dude,
yeah.
you had a stomach ache.
Yeah, it's just a bummer. I mean,
It's a bummer.
he's just not MJ. He can't pull off the flu game.
Yeah, I know. He can't win a slam either.
Dude, just gotta hit him with that. Just
Oh,
hit him
just
with
kick him while he's
I hit him
down.
with the, little arrow, and you just hit him with the sledgehammer.
Yeah, I thought, man, Zverev though, whenever he was getting Rude into the backhand exchange, like that slugfest was just overpowering him,
Yeah.
which
I mean,
is
Zverev has, like, one of
yeah,
the best backhands on tour, but I think we talked about it in that
uh-huh.
episode where we broke down those strokes.
I think Rude was trying to get him into the forehands because that's Rude's shot. He's got that massive forehand, but Zverev was kind of just pinning him in that corner. And also, I thought Rude was giving Zverev way more space than he needed to on his serve because he was
Mm.
creating way more angles. Like I get it, Zverev is a massive server, and generally Rude likes to play way behind the baseline. But I feel like you can't do that against Zverev, or else he'll just start hitting corners on you.
Well, I mean, what about Alcaraz? Wasn't Alcaraz doing that?
Alcaraz was cheating to each side, if that makes sense. So he was
Well, I
still
felt like
far
he was
back, but I
really far
think,
back, like, as early in the match, like, he was almost at the wall, it felt like.
oh yeah, I thought it was funny during the match. They were saying, yeah, he's almost hitting the linesman.
Exactly,
And then
exactly.
next year, since there's going to be no linesman, he's got 3 more feet to work with back there.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, no, I felt like that was the kind of strategy Rude was trying to employ. He just didn't employ it
Hmm.
as effectively as Alcaraz. Because if you're
Yeah,
that far back, you have to hit such an effective return, or your opponent can just step in and serve and volley.
yeah, exactly. I think I wonder if it's because people say Alcaraz is a great strategist, but I mean he's also coached by Ferrero. So I wonder if it's a product of Alcaraz or Ferrero, and then if Rude's dad just isn't giving him enough coaching
Hmm. I think that, well, like
or
I
the
said, it's
right
a similar
coaching.
kind of strategy. So I don't know if it's the
Hmm.
coaching aspect. I think it's one of
Do you
those
think
things
it's
where it's
the
just like, yeah,
implementation?
it's almost just delivery on the shot. Like,
Yeah.
if you're that far back and you can't hit a really effective return, then it doesn't really help you to be that far back because your opponent's just going to step in and finish the point if they hit a decent serve.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and you could see that Zverev serving out wide and then just opening up the court.
Yeah, it was just too easy for him, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, all right. So
Yeah, Sinner and Alcaraz obviously already kind of brought it up. Spectacular match, and I
mhm.
think it's your match of the week, right?
It is. I felt like every other shot, I was like jaw to the floor. Like, how are they doing this?
Exactly, exactly.
The
So we'll get into
amazing
that
rallies.
a
Yeah.
little bit more later, but yeah, just wanted to bring it up. Obviously, the semifinal, just a crazy match. And then obviously, going into the finals, Zverev kind of got a little bit of a weight off his shoulders with the court case being settled out of court. And it kind of didn't really get the resolution people were hoping for, I don't think, because it was settled and there's a presumption of innocence. So, in the public eye, hypothetically, Zverev should be viewed as innocent
Mhm.
because in the first case, obviously, from a while ago, he was found not guilty. And then in this case, he settles with the presumption of innocence. But when you have these allegations against you, people are still going to believe that they're substantiated, and so it's kind of a tough, inconclusive situation.
Yeah, inconclusive, but I think Zverev handled it as well as he could have in the press conference because obviously, you know how people are going to try to frame what they want to kind of think. And Zverev nipped it in the bud. I think he might have taken two questions. The first one wasn't as much of a leading as the second question. Then after the second question, he shut it down. He goes, you know, why would I settle if I'm not innocent? I don't want to hear anything else on this topic. I will not answer it. And that's that. I'm putting this behind me and looking towards the future. So I
100%.
think, to him, it was very much like, hey, the court wouldn't settle this if they thought I was guilty. So to him, it's a clear innocence. To everyone else, like you said, it's kind of still up in the air. It's ambiguous. You asked me earlier about some of the biggest shocks. I was pretty shocked that Zverev was able to make it to the final with this just kind of looming over his head. This is a huge deal.
Yeah, it definitely does show something about his ability to kind of focus in on what he's doing in the match and not be distracted by what's going on off the court.
I feel like this whole court case kind of made him public enemy number one in France or even in the tennis world in general, just because everything the guy did, he was getting booed from the crowd. And I felt for him out there. I usually like the dog, and it just felt like the fans weren't treating him fairly.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of you know the Oklahoma City Thunder player Josh Giddey.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Well, wasn't he pretty,
no, well, here's the thing.
uh,
He got accused of like
yeah,
essentially
rape, right?
yeah, well,
Or
yeah, statutory rape with
yeah.
because he hooked up with apparently with a 17-year-old.
Ooh.
But the situation there was like apparently she showed him an ID that said she was 21.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, there is like kind of an exception to the law. Like he
Yeah.
did his due diligence about it, I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah,
is
yeah.
the situation. But like it's still kind of fucked for him because everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, you hooked up with a seven,"
Exactly.
and it's
Yeah,
like he's like, "Dude, I tried to do the
I
right
know.
thing," but
I know.
anyway, it's a tough
Yes.
situation.
Yeah, no, it's just I mean, you watched the match. There was blood on one of the tennis balls, and Zverev was about to serve it, and he looks at it, he tells the ref, like, "Hey, there's blood on it. Can I get a new ball?" And people just start booing him. Like he just everything he does, he blinks the wrong way and he gets booed.
Yeah,
I don't like that. I don't like that one bit.
yeah,
Anyway,
it's
yeah, I'm getting a little heated here, so let's move
tough.
on.
Yeah, so the final, I mean, just want to start off by saying what a match. And kind of we just wanted to say we've had a lot of great Grand Slam finals recently. Like 3 of the last 4 Slam finals have been really impressive. Like if you think about it, Sinner versus Medvedev was a great final in Australia this year. Obviously, we had Alcaraz versus Djokovic at Wimbledon last year, and then this one with Djokovic Zverev. The one I'm obviously skipping is Medvedev losing in
Medvedev.
straight sets to Djokovic in that U.S. Open last year. But 3 out of 4 is
Revenge.
pretty good, pretty good.
Yeah, no, I'll take that.
Yeah, 100%.
75%.
Yeah, but I just wanna say this is my match of the week, but there are a few things I have to mention about this match. First up, Alcaraz's racket skill is just so unbelievable, and it was on full display in this match. He hit such effective shots from such unorthodox positions, both on the court and just, like, in terms of his footwork. Like, he'll be at, like, a full stretch. I remember, I think Zverev hit an overhead behind Alcaraz, and at full stretch, he was somehow able to hit like an effective shot that kind of puts Zverev a little bit on the back foot in the point. And it's just crazy to see stuff like that.
I know. I felt like I was holding my breath on all the points. Like, oh no, what? It
Yeah.
was incredible, and I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed because I watched this match like on a 6 hour delay, and I had you not text me anything. I had my dad not text me anything. I didn't go on any social media, and I watched the match. Oh, I didn't know who the winner was until like 6 hours after the match.
Yeah, exactly. I texted you. I was like, "Have you finished the
Yeah,
match?" And you're like,
yeah,
"Dude, I'm in the fourth set." I'm
yeah.
like,
I know.
I can't even say
I
anything
know.
about it yet.
I will say I did know that I figured it was a 5 setter because it was like
Oh yeah,
5 hours.
bucket
Yeah.
recording.
I was like, all right, well, we're in for a good one here.
Yeah,
But oh man, it's just a bummer. I
yeah.
wanted Zverev. I'll be straight
Mhm.
up.
Yeah. I mean, a funny story about recording like a big sports event was my buddy was watching the Super Bowl with me, and we had it recorded slightly so we could like skip through some stuff. I think we'd paused it at some point or something like
Mhm.
that. So we were a little bit behind, and it was the Patriots versus the Seahawks Super Bowl. And we're watching the Seahawks drive, and he gets this notification on his phone and he looks at it, and then he puts it back down and just like stares at the screen. And then like 3 minutes later, Malcolm Butler gets the interception on the 1 yard
Oh,
line. And he goes, "Yeah, I knew that was going to happen, but I still cannot believe that's how it went." And it's just
oh my
it's so
god.
tough to go into a recorded thing like that and not know anything.
Yeah, especially in this day and age too.
Exactly.
Oh, ESPN alerts too. I'm glad you had me turn those off
Yeah,
because that's
I was like,
another
you got to
one.
turn that off because
That's another
yeah,
one.
those can spoil it for sure.
All right, do we want to talk about the blown call now or in your match of the week?
Let's just
Because
talk about
that
it now,
is
because that was a
let's
big
get
part
to
of
it.
this match. Because obviously, you want me to break it down, or you want to get into it?
Yeah, go for it. I will get too frustrated.
So essentially, what happened was there was a break point for Zverev early in the fifth set, and Alcaraz on his second serve hits it, and it was a close call, and they play the point, and Alcaraz wins it. Eventually, goes on to win the game, and then Hawkeye comes in and tells that essentially his second serve was out, which would have been a double fault and a loss of the game. Obviously, that would have meant that Zverev breaks back, completely changes the momentum of the fifth set, puts it in a different situation, and maybe means that Zverev is able to make that set a little bit more competitive and maybe even win that fifth set and win the whole match. So it's another situation where you're like, why is the Hawkeye not there? Like, human error actually had a major impact on how that match ended up going just because of this one critical call that could have been solved by having the electronic line calls.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. This kind of reminded me of, here's another football analogy. Football is a game of inches, right? Well, tennis is clearly a game of millimeters because that's how close that 2 millimeters basically, could have changed the outcome of a Grand Slam final.
Just,
And
yeah,
I
doesn't get
mean,
more extreme than that.
yeah. So I know if I'm Zverev, how are you reacting after this? Like, are you making peace with it, or are you just salty for the rest of your life, especially if you don't win a slam?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where you're like, well, I still could have won the match, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there was a blown call, but he was up like 15-40 in that game. Like, he had a couple of chances to break
I
it.
know, but that's a momentum, just
Oh, no,
like
it definitely
pure,
is.
pure momentum. Because
It
he should have
definitely
been
is.
serving at that point. He's rattled because he just had kind of an argument with the ref. Like they're kind of going back and forth. He's shook, so it's no surprise that he loses the next 2 points, and then after that, I feel like he kind of just knew how the match was going to end,
Yeah,
right?
definitely a tough situation. I don't know. Obviously, I've never played in a
Hmm.
Grand Slam final, so I can't speak for him, but it's going to be tough for him to get over that. And I think
Yeah.
the only time he will is if he eventually does win a Grand Slam final.
So one thing I do want to bring up about that was it's pretty ironic. There was a blown call in the semifinal that actually went towards Zverev's favor. Granted, it wasn't in as tight of a match, but Rude also got screwed off a serve call too, which ended up being out as Hawkeye showed. But the ref went down and basically, I don't know how they evaluate the marks or how they say that a different way the ball skids off the dirt. But anyway, that was pretty aggravating to me. I even tweeted it. I was pretty pissed. And then to see another blown call in the final, it just had me, you know, blowing a gasket.
Yeah,
I'm fed up.
it's
I'm
such
so
a,
fed up.
it should be the line call is done by a computer. They have it available and they're choosing not to use it. And I don't understand why.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah. But anyway, so before I obviously get into the match of the week later, I just want to say that obviously this is Alcaraz's third major, but it's also on his third different surface. And I was looking up how often that's happened because only 7 guys have actually won a major on on 3 different surfaces. And so he's obviously the youngest to do this. There's actually only one other guy that has won 3 different surfaces in his first 3 majors, and that was Mats Wilander, but it wasn't at
Oh,
Wimbledon, the US Open, and the French. I believe it was at the Australian US and French because the Australian was played on grass.
whoa, interesting. Did not know that.
Yeah. So
Whoa.
that's a little factoid for you.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, learn something new every day.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
no, all credit to Alcaraz. He played a fantastic tournament.
yeah.
Just
And with this
awesome.
pattern, I just want to say
Mhm.
if he wins the Australian Open next year, it would fit perfectly with the pattern. By the pattern of him winning every third Grand Slam, he should win 2 Grand Slams next year, both of the
Hey,
hardcourt ones.
there we go. There we go. All right. Well, I have a fun little question for you. How many Roland Garros titles do you think Alcaraz will have in his career? Do you think it will be his Grand Slam, like his tournament?
I mean, the thing about it is this: Nadal was so unprecedented. Like you
Hmm.
can't even compare like the idea of someone
I
winning
just
him
want to so bad.
that many Grand Slams at the same time. And I think everyone wants to make that comparison because Alcaraz is Spanish. He's good on clay. He's won at such a young age. But I think we'll have to
Athletic.
wait. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see at least a couple of years down the line to see
Hmm.
what level of dominance he's able to bring to the tour because it's really tough to say, oh, yeah, at 21, we're going to say he's going to perform the same level as someone like Nadal did.
Yeah. Well, going into the grass season, do you think he's favored for Wimbledon or do you think that's Sinner?
I mean, he's the defending champ there, so that's
But the way
obviously a
Sinner's
positive.
playing right now,
Yeah,
right?
that is true. I think I would say if I was going to make a pick, I would pick Sinner because I think Sinner is the better overall player right now. You look at how has played for essentially the past year now, and it's like as the best player in the world, it
Hmm.
makes sense. He's the top, obviously just made #1 in the world, and it's tough to say anyone's going to be beating him there, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see because I know he has that hip injury. I don't know if it's fully healed, like if he's gonna take time off going into Wimbledon or if he's just gonna kind of get right back into it. So I can see him if his hip is fully healed, be the favorite. But if it's not and he has to take more time off, I think Alcaraz
Yeah, I think.
and definitely
Yeah,
not Djokovic.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's
Do you have a
tough to
dark
say at this
horse? Do you have a
point.
dark horse for Wimbledon this year?
Dark horse for Wimbledon, Medvedev.
Yeah. Medvedev, I like
Medvedev,
it. I
because
like it.
even though Medvedev isn't known as a grass court player, I feel like his hard flat shots are kind of a good
Hmm.
style for it. So I think he has a good chance as long as he can stay out of his own head.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the big Chilean, Jari.
An interesting pick too.
That's my dark horse, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it
We'll
goes
check
in a
back in,
few
yeah.
weeks. Yeah. But
All
anyway,
right.
you want to hop into segments?
Yeah. I guess that concludes the Roland Garros final segments here. What is new in tennis? This week I'm going with Roger Federer speaking at the Dartmouth commencement. It was fantastic. If you checked it out, it's like 25 minutes. But my biggest takeaway, like one of the best things I heard from it was so he had played in over 1,500 singles matches over his career, and he's won 80% of those matches, but he only won 54% of those points in those matches, which is,
That's yeah,
his
that's
point
wild.
was, hey, it's just a point, right? Like, you're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, but over a long time, you only need to win just over half.
Yeah, no, I mean
Like
that.
that to have a successful career, it's
Yeah,
hmm,
it's one of those things that it reminds me of kind of what Justin Gimelstob said when he was on a while ago was, hey, in sports like baseball, if you're a little bit better than your opponent, then you're going to win a little bit more of the time. And in
hmm.
tennis, if you're a little bit better than your opponent, you're going to win almost every time. So that kind of comes in here. He only won 54% of the points, but
Yeah,
he won 80% of the matches.
that's so funny. I'm actually reading The Master, the Federer book right now, and Gimelstob is quoted a few times in it, just like
Mm.
one being a funny quote where I guess he's friends with Federer, and when Gimelstob got married, Federer gave him, or Mirka gave him, some honeymoon suggestions, and he goes, "Yeah, I had a great time. They were great suggestions, but by the time I got my bill, I realized it was a honeymoon for the number one in the world, not the number 80th in the world." Like he said, he
You're
was
like,
hurting after that.
ooh.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
Federers, he said, they know how to spend money.
Yeah. I mean, when you're sponsored by Rolex and Mercedes, you probably have some money to spend.
Right. Okay. So what did you see in the news this week?
I mean, I kind of already spoiled it, to be honest. I forgot it was my what's new, but Sinner becoming the world number one. And actually, an interesting thing about this was that Djokovic actually falls all the way to number three because with Alcaraz winning the tournament, he goes up to number two in the world. And
Mm,
that's, I don't think, a very common drop. You see a guy drop from one to three. You can see guys kind of jump up that far if they do a big result,
hmm.
but usually the top guy doesn't fall down multiple spots. But another thing about this is Sinner is just kind of separating himself. I mean, he's significantly ahead in the race to Turin rankings, and I want to see kind of where he ends up as this year goes on because he has room to improve at Wimbledon. He has room to improve at the U.S. Open. So it's like he's gonna have like 15,000 points. He could reasonably have 15,000 points or so in terms of
Hmm.
his ranking by the time the U.S. Open concludes, which would just be crazy. Like we haven't seen that kind of ranking amount since like Djokovic won 4 Grand Slams in a row.
Jeez. Yeah. I mean, so you get a trophy for being number one, right? Because I saw there was a
Oh
huge
yeah, yeah,
ceremony and everything.
yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're at number one.
That's cool. That's cool. But I think I saw another stat that the big four over the last, like, what, 25 years, like that combined time at number one was like over 20 years
No, no, yeah. So
over out
so
of those guys, right?
Sinner is the seventh number one since 2004, and so over that entire span, obviously, it's only been like 30 some weeks from Alcaraz.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think only like 1 or 2 weeks maybe from Medvedev.
From
Like
Medvedev.
no. Maybe it was 1 week from Center. I think it was just the one
Yeah.
week from Center. So this
Yeah.
week, and then it was like a few weeks from Medvedev. I don't remember how many, but not that many from any guys other than obviously the big four.
Oh
And
my
honestly, when you
God.
think about it, Murray was only number one for like 40 some weeks, which is
Uh-huh.
which is a long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't get
That's
me
almost a
wrong,
year. Mm-hmm.
but the only reason I think they say the big four instead of the big three in that scenario is because it went like Murray in the middle of it.
Mm, yeah.
Like if he had been at the
Yeah.
end, they would have cut it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is kind of funny though, because before Medvedev, it was only the big four for that
Uh-huh.
incredibly long span.
Gotcha. Huh. All
But
right. Should we get into bet of the week?
yeah, sounds good to me. So I went with Eubanks plus 150 over Nakashima. So two Americans here having a grass court matchup. And it's true that Eubanks has had a tough year so far, hasn't really done that well, especially after the kind of expectations we grew from him, considering how well he did last year. But I do think that he is worth this bet because the grass court is really where he had all of his great performance last year. That's where he broke out. He won Mallorca or made the final there and made a couple finals and made that big run at Wimbledon and really just performed well on grass. And while he hasn't been playing well this year, I don't think that plus 150 is appropriate given how well he played on grass last year.
Yeah, I think grass really suits his playing style, but I can't bet against Nakashima here. He's my boy. I met him in person. So,
Understandable.
yeah, a little emotional there.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you're not taking your boy Andy this week in
Yeah,
Stuttgart.
I'll be
He's
honest. I'll be honest. I wanted to take him,
yeah,
but he was the favorite.
I know. I was like, so what?
Yeah,
He's
I'll be
minus
honest. I'll be honest. I
175 against
almost went for
Jerome.
Giron because I
Yeah.
was like, that just hedges my bets. If I lose the bet, I'm gonna be happy because Murray won, and if I win the
Yes.
bet, obviously I win the bet.
Oh, those are the best bets.
Yeah,
I would say
double win.
exactly. I would be more inclined to take Giron if it wasn't grass. Like the fact
Mm,
that it's grass, and Andy's had Wimbledon victories, and grass is kind of is one of his best surfaces. I feel like, I can't really bet against him just quite yet.
yeah.
Oh,
What about you? Who'd you go for?
I'm going with a lock this week. I'm going Popperin minus
Lock of the week.
lock. Oh, this is a lock,
Ooh.
big time lock. I'll tell you why right here. So I'm
Okay.
taking Popperin minus 140 over his fellow countryman Hijikata. And I think it's a great matchup for him. They've never played each other. They're 0-0 head to head, but Popperin's got a big serve, big game, and it translates very well over to grass. Hijikata is not a big guy. He's kind of more of a retriever, and I feel like Popperin will just be able to overpower him essentially. They're the pretty much the same age. Popperin's 24, Hijikata's 23, but Popperin has been on tour 5 years longer than Hijikata. So with that, I think the more experience on grass too, because grass is a tricky surface. And I
Hmm.
think the more you play on it, the more you're used to it. So I think Popperin's kind of got that under his belt. So going with the favorite here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bold to lock at like that level of odds minus 140. Like I usually see you'd expect a lock to be at least like minus 300 or better, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. I am pretty confident in this one.
I respect it. I respect it. But
Let's
yeah, so
hope
let's
it
get into
pays.
match of the week. What'd you go for? I mean, I don't have to ask really, but
Yeah, no, I went for the Outgrass Center semi. This was hilarious because it was on a Friday midday, and obviously I have work, so I was just so unproductive during the day. I hope my boss is not listening to this, but I was watching both the semis, and before Alcaraz Sinner, I was actually leaning Alcaraz heavy before the match. I was thinking, oh, he's got this, Clay, whatever. Sinner's kind of hurt. But then I quickly ate my words after Sinner like broke him twice in the first set and cruised to a 6-2 victory. Pretty much held to love on all of his service games. But then we had a total momentum flip in the second set. Sinner started cramping up in his hand. Not really sure if it's like a nerves thing or if it's just fitness. I brought this up last week that we kind of need to watch out for Sinner and his cramping. Um, just watching this match, man, Alcaraz, he doesn't have the most power. He doesn't have a Sinner forehand, but the way he creates angles on it and the topspin he applies is just so like satisfying watching. So I felt like he was able to open up the court a lot, create good angles, and kind of finish up at the net. He played a great retrieving game against Sinner because Sinner plays very offensive, very aggressive, and Alcaraz was able to hang back there, play some D, and then counterpunch when he needed to. Um, Total roller coaster match, five setter, went up and down, up and down. Eventually, Alcaraz was able to close him out in the end, and I think I noticed in this match, like the longer it went on, the more Alcaraz had the advantage, just because I feel like he thrives off that adversity that like come from behind. Whereas Sinner, props to him for making it this far with that hip injury and taking a month off of tennis. but I just think Alcaraz was able to outlast him physically, and that was very noticeable in this semi.
Yeah, and I think also just the comfortability on the clay probably played a role
Mhm.
here because we know Alcaraz has played so many matches on clay, and I feel like in this scenario, like when you're getting into that deep in that fifth set, whoever's more comfortable is going to end up winning the match.
Yeah, no, I know, and I thought it was pretty. I know. Zverev was coming into the final with what, like 20 hours of court time, but Alcaraz had just played this grueling five setter. So it kind of felt like it was up in the air as far as who would come in fresher.
Yeah, it's tough in that scenario because you're like, okay, he did just have this match, but if you look at what Alcaraz's run looked like overall, like
Mhm.
up until the semis, he dropped what, one set,
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
like
he
that.
he cruised. But hot not I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think the five setter that Alcaraz played in the semis actually helped him in the final because he, had experience in a five setter. And I think Zverev's five setter against Greek Sport, and yeah, I think he had one against Runa too. That also helps. I think the more five setters you play, the more confidence you can build up and just kind of build off that to, have more confidence in a fifth set.
100%, 100%.
All right, now time for your match of the week.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about it. Alcaraz was just producing magic in these last two rounds. And he came out with just a really impressive opening set, just jumped out to an early lead. And I think it kind of had to do with nerves for Zverev. Obviously, doesn't have as much experience in these Grand Slam finals as Alcaraz does. But so he gets that first set, Alcaraz. And then I just kind of noticed in that first set that he really just is so dominant because he combines incredible racket skill, like I brought up earlier, with just that spectacular athleticism like Nadal. And with those two things, so tough for anybody to beat him. But in this match, he kind of just showed, I think, every single aspect of why Alcaraz is a special player. It was just like a showcase of each part of his personality. He showcased his skill. He showcased that he was an entertainer, but then he also showed that like he maybe had a little bit of immaturity because in some situations he got a little bit of lead and then made a bunch of unforced errors in situations where you're like, how did he miss that shot? But then late in the match, he also showed his mental strength to stay in it when he ended up going down 2-1. And on the other side, really just a tough one for Zverev. He's been within a set of winning a Grand Slam twice now. And Alcaraz capitalized on the nerves early. He got that first set. Zverev kind of settled in and got the next two, but then it didn't seem like he was willing to kind of force that last little bit out of himself when he was playing to win the match in those fourth and fifth sets. And Alcaraz ends up kind of just slowly building his way back into it because I think he was willing to go for a little bit more. And hey, he had that controversial call in the fifth that obviously, like we talked about, has impacted how his mentality was in that set. But I do respect how classy he was after the match to Alcaraz, at least. Like he did bring it up in the press conference and it was brought up to him, and he was classy in that too. But I think his respect to Alcaraz directly after the match was commendable.
Yeah, big hats off to Zverev for that. And Alcaraz's secret, right? About lasting
What's that?
with the pickle juice.
Oh yeah,
So funny.
isn't that what Agassi did pretty much? He had the gill
Yeah.
juice, but
Yeah. But no, I mean you kind of touched on Zverev's nerves in this, and he started the match two double faults. Remember that? Like
not
he's
great.
probably his heart is probably racing there.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just another point on yours about Alcaraz being an entertainer and just getting involved with the crowd. He's not afraid to put his hand up to his ear and pump up the crowd. He really feeds off that. And you actually see a lot of the same mannerisms of Rafael Nadal in Alcaraz with like his jump fist bumps, his vamos, like just pure excitement out there on the court.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like he's watched his idol do it and now he's doing
Yeah. It's that swing fist bump that Tiger Woods does too,
it.
like
Yeah.
where you bring it in low and then
Yeah, and then
come
he'll start
up.
doing the chainsaw that Nadal used to do. Just that.
Yeah. That's the
Ah.
classic. Yeah, the classic. All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.